Session 9. Welcome back to Breakthrough Counseling Services. I'm Dr. DeValle. I'm a licensed clinical Christian counselor and a certified counselor, professional counselor. I want to talk to you. We're dealing with anxiety and different conditions of anxiety and depression, sadness, some mood changes. Let's talk about that. I want to take you to the book of Mark in the Bible. You read a story, you see a story there about a storm. And my program is called the Ride the Wave program. And in this story, you hear about waves. So what's happening? They're in a boat. They just finished doing ministry work, discipling, and they get in this boat to get away, Jesus and the disciples. And a storm comes along, and Jesus finds himself sleeping. The disciples find him sleeping, and he just goes to sleep. He rests and doesn't worry about anything about what happened that day. He just goes and has a peaceful sleep. Okay, you can imagine how restful it is if the boat is there, in calm waters, easy to fall asleep. But all of a sudden, a storm comes. Isn't that how it happens in our lives? Sometimes things just come out of nowhere. And this is what landed up happening to the disciples. So instead of using the tools they had, the teachings they had, the parables, everything that Jesus taught them, they got triggered. Their outer world rocked their inner world. So what do? Instead of letting Jesus rest, because he was exhausted, they go to him in a panic. They wake him up. But Jesus had already told them who he was and told them how to deal with life. At this point, he was already coaching them, consulting them, and teaching them. They didn't use any of their tools. Is that what happens in our lives when difficulties come? Do we overreact? Do we forget our tools? Do we forget what to do? Yes, it does happen to a lot of people. And sometimes it's not your fault. It's just no preparation. There's no time. It could be an extenuating circumstance that came out of nowhere. Exactly what happened here. So what does he do? He gets up. He doesn't rebuke them at that point. He gets up and he uses his power. He calms the storm. And at that point, the storm's over. So they look in amazement. They can't believe it. And he says something interesting here. He tells them here, he says, I want you to be quiet and be still. See, he says this to the storm, not to them. He tells the storm. Now, I took that word, be quiet and be still. And I said, if Jesus said that to the storm, right, we can also say it to ourselves, because the storm now is inside of us. We feel the impact of the adrenaline. We feel the trigger response. Our inner world is rocked. We feel symptoms. That is a storm. And what we want to do, the destination we need to get to, where we need to get to, is to get that sympathetic nervous system to be quiet and be still, to get into what I call parasympathetic nervous system. This is what he told the storm. He said, be quiet and be still. And the wind stopped and it became completely calm. That's what we're after here. In amazement, they looked and they just couldn't believe it. And he told them one thing. He said, you have no faith. You need to have faith if you want things around you to be calm and still. Because there is a power that controls the universe. You can't control the universe. You can control your reaction and your responses to it. And this is what he was teaching them here. And then in amazement, they said, who is this that controls the wind and the waves obey him? You see, if you're out in the waves, remember I told you about being a surfer. If you're out there, you truly cannot control the waves. You're not God. But what you can do is what Jesus was trying to tell them, was ride the wave. They should have left them sleeping, and they should have just trusted. He wasn't going to let them be harmed, and neither will you. You're going through some challenges with your nervous system, it's understandable, but there's no harm in it. You need to know that. Okay, there is no harm when you get triggered, when you have anxiety or you're having panic, you feel sad, you feel your mood changes a little bit, just know the storm will be calm and quiet if you just apply the tools. All right, so we'll see you for our next session. Remember to keep riding those surfboards and keep riding those waves. We'll see you next time.